Greetings, Poe fans. Welcome to another edition of Poe Unplugged. I am Carmen Bolden.
And I am Jeanie Smith, and we are
The Potastic Two.
Come Zoom with us into the Unbook Club dedicated to the works of Mr. Edgar Allan Poe.
Good evening and welcome back to Poe Unplugged. Tonight we are going to discuss the Cask of Amontillado.
Dun, dun, dun. No drinking allowed. That's what started all this. Holly.
It's water, I swear.
look what I'm drinking. I don't know if this is. I found some Amontillado.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yes.
we also have.
And I have to say, it tastes horrible. That's okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we have some in the house, but usually we use it to mix it in another kind of cocktail. So, all right. Who wants to start off about this story? It's one of my favorites. It's in my top 5.
I'm happy to go. I mean, this is a story that I've grown up with. I think the first time that I read the story was probably in 7th grade, maybe somewhere right around there.
Mm-hmm.
I did it as one of my Toastmaster projects on my way to my Advanced Communicator Bronze certification with Toastmasters, performing the story. And then, of course, I produced it as an audio drama. And I just this story has always spoken to me. Just great writing, great effects, leaves a little bit to the imagination. So not everything is spelled out. You get to, it's kind of up to the interpretation of the reader. And I think that gives you a lot of opportunity to really get involved in the story and sometimes make certain things feel a different way, just depending on who reads the story. So I think it's just been written. It was written so well that it obviously, I mean, here it is 170 some odd years later. And here we are still loving it and talking about it.
Yeah, I have heard your radio drama, Jason, and it is superb. You adapt the story perfectly, and then you expand on it by adding a few characters and dialogue that you take from Poe's narration and turn it into dialogue. So it's just a wonderful drama. I really enjoyed hearing it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is awesome.
Yeah, I second what you said, Dr. Jeff. I like how you actually kind of nestled the story, Jason, inside another story to kind of give it context. It really helped set the scene. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I know, and one of the things that is being talked about, and I think one of the parts of the story I really enjoyed was given such little narrative space in the original story. It was the departure of the attendants in the house.
Right.
And that whole thing, that is such a rich part of the story. The fact that, saying don't leave with the intent of knowing they'll go. And
yeah,
the departure to make the house vacant enough so that he can come and bring Fortunato back and do the deed. And that part of the story just was only maybe 2 or 3 lines that was discussed in the original short story, and it just was such an important piece of it. If those attendants hadn't left, I mean, it would have spoiled the whole thing.
Absolutely.
That is an example of reverse psychology. I doubt that term was in existence back then, but the whole story is about reverse psychology because Montresor says, "Oh, I can learn everything about Amontillado from Lucchese. Don't bother." And that he knows is going to set Fortunato off and will lure him to the catacombs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I think
an ignoramus.
Yeah, I think what I think is interesting about this story, because you guys have heard me say it before, so I have to stay, consistent, that this isn't one of my favorite stories. And I think I finally figured out why. Because I was really, really thinking about it, because that's everything I should like. Revenge, murder, humor, I should love it. And I do really like it. It's just not in my top 5 or anything. And the reason why is, with Telltale Heart and with the Black Cat, there's a supernatural thread. And this is actually a Poe story where there isn't a supernatural thread. And the killer, I know this is going to sound like an oxymoron or whatever, but the killer is actually a sane killer, right? He's sane. He's very aware of what he's doing. He kind of gives him his out. Where a Telltale Heart, he's hearing voices. He's not really there. And of course, in Black Cat, he's drinking a lot, he's not in his right mind.
Mm-hmm.
But in this situation, we have a character who it knows exactly what he's doing. It's premeditated. So it kind of like it's a story about someone who really knows what they're doing is wrong. Where I think when the other ones was like a fit of anger and Black Cat, and the other one he is actually thinking he was doing a good thing by ridding the world of his eye. So this is actually like a true revenge story. So it has a little bit of a darker grit to it without the supernatural. But of course, it's excellently written, of course. But yeah, it was just like trying to pinpoint like why is it? I think for me it's just because it's missing that supernatural, which is always my sweet spot. So I unfortunately went down a couple tiers for that, but it's still excellent. You know, guys, I love Poe. I just wanted to share that.
No, Holly, that's a good point because comparatively to other stories, it definitely lacks that supernatural. And I always kind of relate it to Hot Frog just with the theme of revenge. That's
absolutely
where I put those together. But
I do wonder though, I mean, Holly, you had said that he seems perfectly sane. And the one part where he doesn't quite seem is near the end. What's that?
I think I know what you're going to say. Go ahead. Sorry.
Near the end where Fortunato is kind of near, almost expired. He's giving up hope and he just starts wailing from behind the wall. And the narrator adds to that. He matches Fortunato's screaming. And so he's gonna like literally screaming into the abyss near the end. And that struck me as a little unhinged.
See, to me, I think it was because I read a lot of horror, and but for me, I kind of took it almost like a flex of power. For me, that's how I personally read it. But I think you're right. I think what Dr. Jeff said, or was it Jason, about whoever is like telling a story can change the meaning behind things. But there was a glimpse for me where I thought maybe he was suffering from mental health issues, because at some point he does say to Fortunato, like, oh, like, you're happy. Like, I used to be once, like, I was happy. He kind of gives an inclination that something had happened, despite whatever he said that offended him, that now he's no longer happy, which I think plays into like some sort of mental health depression. And maybe that's having him kind of like focusing in on certain things that he can control, like killing his ex-friend. Yeah, good point, Steve.
I think along with what I think along with what Steve is saying about him maybe being unhinged is we never really learn what these 1,000 injuries are that he suffered from Fortunato. I mean, that could have just been in his mind, or he might have been jealous of the guy and he cooked up all of these injuries that were perpetrated upon him. You know, who knows?
Or they were microaggressions, just little things, but finally he had the last straw.
Yes.
Yeah,
I agree with that, Dr. Jeff, because it's like, when you don't like someone or you're on edge with someone, every little word you're like waiting, right? And then you twist it in your mind. And I mean, I know I do that. I mean, I don't think I'm fully insane or whatnot, but I think that's like human nature, like, like to be on edge and like you're waiting for it, like, oh, what do they mean behind what they said? So I definitely think that Montresor is like super sensitive for sure.
Yeah.
Obviously that's what he's going through all with this, but it's a good point. You guys.
Yeah, it kind of felt like an injury could just be the popularity, because he always seems to have a little bit of jealousy in the initial monologue where he starts talking about, who's who, in some things he's an expert, and other things, he's just kind of phony baloney. But I think there's also that thing where he goes to Carnival and Fortunato's out there just having a good time, having a blast, dressed up, bells on, loving life, doing his thing. And Montresor just seems to be in this funk, like constantly, like he lives his life in this haze, and yet here's Fortunato having a good time and goofing around. And he even comes up and just, oh, my friend, and just, has this just zest for life, kind of an appeal to it that could have just gotten under his skin too. And that could just be, every time I see this guy, he's always happy and he's always enjoying himself. And, I hate that, and it could just be that those things, just every time he sees him is another injury,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's actually excellent like analysis. I totally agree with that. Some people just can't take other people living their best life, right? Because it kind of puts that spotlight on things that they're not doing, that they want to be doing. Like, oh, I want to be having a good time, but I can't let myself. And that kind of sneaks up at you. Totally, Jason.
Yeah.
How many of us have ever been in a situation, and I'm not talking about in one day, but over a period of time, where someone just drives you damn nuts? You're around them, and they say little things that just drive you crazy. And you say, well, I'm going to be the adult in the room here, and I'm going to walk away. But all the while, your inner vets are saying, I'm going to get them. I'm going to get them one day. One day I'm going to get them.
Hand me the
And I think Montresor finally, I think he got into overload. Whatever the insults were, I think he was pushed to the point where he says, "To hell with it. I'm getting even."
Yeah, Micah said marriage.
Part of his yeah, and there's a lot in the story, and it is one of my favorites of Poe's. I would put it in the top 3: Telltale Heart, Black Cat, and Amontillado. But there's a whole lot in this story about pride. I think even to some extent there's some bullying in there.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of stuff in it. Seeing opportunities to stick somebody when you get a chance. I don't know. I really enjoy the story, and I've read it probably 100 times in my life, and I'll probably read it. I hope I get to read it another 100 before I die, because every time I read it, I find something else that I like about it.
I agree with that same sentiment, Mike. One thing I noticed this time around was just each one of them was hyper focused on their goal. Montresor killing, and Fortunato, he had to have that Amontillado. And it's like, if Fortunato had, acted like, he was, wanting to get out of it, Montresor really gave him an out, but he was so focused on, I've got to see this Amontillado. Lucchese cannot say this is Amontillado or not. He had to be the ultimate, wine connoisseur and all of that. And I don't know, just when I read it this afternoon, I just felt like I never noticed this, ultra hyper focus of that before. It just like that's what kind of resonated with me today.
Yeah, definitely pride from both sides. Yeah.
I wonder too if halfway through, when they're in the catacombs and Montresor is kind of leading him down, he has another coughing fit. He's already gone through the draft of Medoc, on the way. And he almost feels like he's giving him another out and another out and another out along the way. Almost like at some point I felt like maybe he's actually trying to find a reason to not go through with it. And then Fortunato sticks him again with the quip about being a Mason, and he's like, oh, well, you're not of the Brotherhood, you're lesser than anyway. And he's like, well, of course I am, well, give me a sign, right? And he breaks out the trowel, and then he just becomes this big jest. Oh, that's not what I'm talking about, you idiot. Drives him crazy all over again. And he's like, okay, I'm going through with this. I don't care anymore.
Yeah, that's a great point, because what Jason, like, that is so insultful. I mean, talk about being an insult. Like, yeah, really, dude? Yeah, that was like, damn.
It's insult to injury. Yeah.
Yeah, you deserve what you're about to get.
Yeah, and it almost like refocuses the attention. Even you feel it in the writing, like it's more direct after that. Just down here, come along, grab my robe, let's go. Almost like, okay, we're gonna go do this, and we're gonna do it quicker now because I'm pissed again.
Yeah. Renewed vigor.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Did anybody that has
I read.
Oh, go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I read an essay last week, just trying to get ready for this, and I forgot who wrote it, but it talked about 5 things that Poe put into his writings. 5 tips from Poe or something. I think that was the name of it. And I remember the one thing that it said Poe, and I can't verify this, maybe you guys can, you're more expert at this than I am, that one things he did when he wrote, he knew where he was going before he ever started. He had the end in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so then when you get to the end of this story, it comes out, well, that was 50 years ago. And I wonder why he had that end in mind. Was it one of two reasons? Number one, was it to show the audience that he got away with murder? Or was it also partly to let the audience know, my gosh, that was 50 years ago. Maybe I don't remember everything accurately. So I don't know how I feel about the ending of it. Any thoughts?
No, I hear you, Mike. And I think that's one of the things I was talking about at the beginning, where you can, depending on who reads it, you can formulate, what you think on that part. It's exactly why I added other things into my audio drama to try to answer that question in a creative way. But when I first read it, before I was doing the scripting of it, my thought was it was still one more way that he's like, I did it this long ago, haven't thought about him a day since. Almost like it was gonna happen. I did it, and I'm telling you about it. I don't even know why, but just I did it, and I'm good. And then it was almost like the dismissive nature of the fact that this guy was walled up alive, and he just really doesn't care.
Yeah. There's also a legend, I guess you could say, and when Poe was stationed at Fort Independence in Boston, that there is a story that was told to all the soldiers that this one soldier was lured down to the dungeon and killed. And so that there's theories out there that Poe heard this story, kind of put it in his back pocket, and then came out with the Cask of Amontillado loosely based on that story. I always forget that sometimes, but I visited Fort Independence. You can't go inside it, but it's, people talk about it around there.
How about that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if I knew that or not, but I mean, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So whether it's true or not, don't know. Just, another theory about, one of the places that Poe was.
Did the killer get away with the murder, or was he caught?
I believe he did get away with it. Yes. I can look up the details. Hold on a second while you guys are talking. One other thing I thought about more this time than other times I've read this was that I would love to hear this story told from Fortunato's point of view. Because I would love to know what is his inner monologue saying as he's going down into the catacombs.
Well, that brings me to what I want to talk about, because one of the things that I've always said with Poe is he always loves to bring in things that tie in both religion and mythology. And this is the perfect example of a story that has both. Because look at it, you can actually identify the seven deadly sins in this story. Because you have gluttony, you have pride, you have whatever the other ones are. You don't have lust, but you know what I'm saying.
Lusting,
lusting
for the drink, lusting for the valuable bottle.
So you have the seven deadly sins going on here that can either be Fortunato or Montresor, because they both are experiencing both. Because, I mean, think about it. Fortunato, pride. He's got his pride because he thinks he's the, sommelier of all of them and has to have the Amontillado. And then you have, along with that, you have the mythology, the mythos behind, because one of the things that Fortunato is narcissist. He is a narcissist. I mean, that's pretty much one of the things that drives him and leads to his downfall. Is because he's being led, and he only sees what's in front of his face, and he's only thinking about himself for this whole thing. And all these thousands little things that he might have done to Montresor, he probably doesn't even know what he did, doesn't even know that he did them, and it could be all in Montresor's mind that this is happening, and Fortunato is not doing it towards him. He's just doing it out of his own narcissistic behavior, out of his own pride, and all of that. And that's one thing with Poe that I love, is he always sticks them in there And as I've said this before when we've talked about this particular story, is that every time that I read it, I always take different sides, especially when I'm, how I'm feeling. Oh, today, do I feel like Montessor that I want to, wall somebody up? I'm good. It's all right. Or do I feel like Fortunato that somebody is like attacking me for something that I might have done and I don't realize what I've done? And, what am I, what am I actually going to expect? Am I being stuck behind this wall that I can't break through because I can't figure out what's wrong? So, and that's one of the things that I think, and even though he's telling the story and Montessor is telling that this happened like 50 years before, but one of the things that always gets me did it really happen or was it all in his mind? Because that's one of the things. I mean, because he kept giving Fortunato a way out. He kept asking him, "Are you sure you want to stop? Or you want to turn back? You want to, and because it goes back to what Holly was talking about with mental illness and stuff. And even though, yes, I agree, this didn't have the supernatural aspect, this is more along the more humane and humanity of it all. Like with Holly's outfit, Poe is telling a story that not everything is black and white. There's always gray areas. Someone who could be, going along with life, not have done anything wrong one point in their life, and all of a sudden it's they break. They have to do something, and it can either be something small or it can be something as big as murder, walling somebody up. You never know what could have caused him to break. So, you know, that is one of the things that I think maybe, hey, I want to rewrite my own, that he's telling this story that he walled it up, but maybe he forgot that he let him out, so he's really not dead. Yeah. So that's one of the things, like I said, you've got the mental aspects, you've got the mythology, and you've got the seven deadly sins kind of mixed all in there. So it's Poe at his finest.
Yeah, Jeanie, I actually 100% agree. I didn't see that before with the seven deadly sins. I totally see it. Absolutely. I think they're on parade in that. Now that you said it pretty obviously. And I actually had thought when I was thinking, like, what did he do to him that really bothered him? And I had thought there's no true, like, it's not actually said anywhere in there. But I always thought, like, what really bothers a guy, right? When someone steals your girl. So I kind of had thought, like, fortunately I was happily married. I was kind of thinking, if I wonder if going into that lust play, like, did he steal his girl? And that was one of the things that I thought that could have happened without there really being any true indication of it. But yeah, good point, Jeanie.
Yeah.
That's one of the script rewrites that they had done. There's been a movie where it actually that takes that perspective of kind of the love triangle aspect of it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was a black and white, and I don't remember the year of it, but it was probably the 50s or 60s when kind of an angle on that was made. I think that was the first movie adaptation I saw was related to that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you could see how that could totally drive all of Montressor's like motivations, like easily. Because I mean, let's be honest, love drives you crazy, and the lack of love makes you really crazy.
Mm-hmm. Very so true. I guess I'm probably an outlier here. That I first of all, Jeanie, I love the idea of the seven deadly sins. I think you're right on with that one. But on the question of the narrator's sanity or not, I guess I see him as the only thing I think he's gotten wrong. And somebody else said this earlier. I've forgotten who of you did. That he's really blown these slights out of proportion. These 1,000 slights. Fortunato's probably not even aware of it. So I think the fact that he's giving Fortunato the chances out, I think that's actually just is part of the ploy of getting him off his guard, so he'll come all the way in despite his illness, susceptibility to the niter, etc. I think he comes across as just incredibly, if not sane, methodical, and the slights are so blown out of proportion. I guess you have to decide whether that is a sign of mental illness or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think, Steve, I'm right with you. I think he was in his right state of mind. I think he had issues that definitely drove him that way. And like, let's be honest, guys, like we're talking about a time period where you could get away with murder. Like nowadays, if I put someone in my chimney, they're gonna find me out. I'm really not that clever. I'm not Dexter. Totally, I'm not getting away with this. But I think, like, I mean, I know it sounds kind of morbid to think like, hey, if you could get away with it, is there someone in your life that you would wall up? And I mean, I'm just being honest, and I have several. So I mean, he's like living in a world where this is really possible. So I mean, for me, I think he was driven by, I think, mental health issues, but totally in his right frame of mind. And like Jason had said, like that last insult, right while he was right there at the finish line, did him in. He signed his death warrant right then and there.
Yeah.
And probably he didn't even realize it, right? I mean, he was just, that's just who he was, you know? It's like, you're not one of us, you know?
Yeah, he's just pompous.
Yeah, just pompous. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and I agree to some extent to that, except for just because you may have some mental illness does not mean that affects your sanity. Because you can be as sane as anybody and have moments of, murder. I hate to say it, but everybody be very nice to Holly. I agree.
I mean, come on, guys,
wall
for
somebody
real.
up in her chimney, but okay. But yeah, and yeah, mental illness there's so many caveats to it, and there's so many things, but a sociopath is what I've watched interviews and been in interviews with serial killers that seem as perfect as the boy next door or as sane as you and me. Well, I'll say so. Some days I don't know how sane that is, but anyway. And they can be just as normal as everything, but it just takes one little thing, and it just changes. It can change a person's whole outlook. Road rage is the perfect example. A person that is the most calm and patient person and everything, and something just keeps stacking up and stacking up, and it could be a slight that they are only just visioning in their own minds that's happening, and it could not be somebody's not doing it to them, they're just feeling it, that it's personal to them. And then all of a sudden one person cuts them off in traffic, and that's the last straw, and they just react. So, I mean, it's one of those fine lines. You don't really know. And that's one of the things with this story that I love so much, is you can keep going back and you look at it from all different angles and you think about it and you're like, I wonder if Poe was thinking about who he could wall up at this time. Was he thinking about Griswold? Was he like, who was
Probably had someone in mind.
Yeah, he probably was thinking about somebody at this point. So, but yeah, I agree also that, it may have nothing to do with a mental illness. It could just be, I don't know. I just think
But
maybe.
at that time period, Jeanie, too, it was honor was very important. If you've been slighted in any way, I mean that's a death sentence in some cases, and it's very important. It's a dueling offense. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of duels, I found the story. So I'll just read it. It's not very long. So, and there's two parts to it that makes it very interesting. So a duel had taken place between two lieutenants, Robert Massey and Gustavus Drain, on the grounds of the fort on Christmas Day, 1817. According to the story, Drain was a bragging, hateful bully who had already killed several men in duels based on trumped-up pretexts. Drain had focused on Massey as a victim and had accused him of cheating at cards. Based on this false accusation, he demanded immediate satisfaction. Massey unfortunately complied, not wanting to look like he was backing down from a fight. Swords were named as the weapon. Attempts at last-minute reconciliation failed, so within the inner walls of the fort, the duel actually took place. Massey was not able to hold his own against Drain and was killed. Massey had been a popular officer, and his brethren mourned his loss bitterly. He was buried on the fort's grounds with military ceremony, and a marker was erected to his memory. According to legend, Drain vanished soon after this and was never seen again. His fellow officers had supposedly abducted him and walled him up alive in the fort. Now, here's where it gets interesting. But is this story actually true? They say no, not entirely. Gustavus Drain did not die in 1817. He was promoted to a captain and later died in 1846. Massey's grave was moved several times in the many decades following his death. For many years, the Massey-Drain duel on Castle Island was considered just another tall tale of Boston Harbor that may have some grains of truth, but had been wildly exaggerated by the unfortunate credulity of the locals. But there's a twist. In 1905, 85 years after this duel, some Boston workmen were repairing parts of the old fort, and they came across a section of the old cellar that their original diagram showed was a small dungeon. But in reality, it was basically walled off. The blueprints of the fort simply did not match what actually existed. So they were like, why was this sealed up? No one really knew. So the workers asked and got permission to explore the area further. The wall was broken down. It was thick with layers of brick and mortar, shining a light within the dank and fetid recess. The workmen made a strange discovery. Within was a skeleton shackled to the floor of the dungeon, with ragged scraps of an ancient U.S. Army uniform still draped over its bones.
Cool.
Wow.
So, yeah.
You know what? I totally forgot. In that Poe Evermore podcast, they do use that. I think I don't know if it's episode 1 or 2.
Okay.
But you know what? They do actually make light of that story. So it's like I was like, man, it does kind of sound familiar. So that's actually cool because I don't think I realized it was actually from Poe's history.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a neat story.
Yeah, so it's wildly exaggerated from what actually happened, but then so if he really didn't die down there, who is that skeleton? Who was it?
Mm-hmm.
Or are they even making that up? And Micah says CSI Edgar Allan Poe. I would totally watch that. Yes, me too.
Sorry.
Well, I have a couple of sentences I wanted to read. I ran across this. It's possible that the real Fortunato was a personal rival named Thomas Dunn English, who wrote a brutal literary caricature of Poe called 1844, or The Power of SF, in which the pretentious author of The Black Crow pines for his lost Lenore and is characterized as a drunken wife-beater. Using imagery from 1844, including the coat of arms, Fortunato's sign, and the catacombs, Poe responded with what may arguably be his most popular murder tale, The Cask of Amontillado.
Very cool.
That is. Yeah.
I actually remember a little bit of that, Dr. Jeff, where you were reading, because I was like, oh, yeah, I remember reading that. That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, Poe had several, that's cool. Poe had several enemies, so he could have had somebody in mind for fortune, his own personal fortune.
We all have one.
Well, I had heard multiple different times from various people that the one of the theories, and I think kind of, I don't know if it's considered a leading theory or not, is that it was a literary critic, and that he was walling up, just in his mind. So it just kind of makes sense.
It does.
Yeah.
Well, but why do you think Poe named him Fortunato? He wasn't too fortunate in this story.
I think that's the beautiful irony.
Yeah.
I agree.
I guess so. Because
And
I looked up what Montresor meant. My Montresor, the best translation I could find would be my treasure. And think, I wonder how that clues in there. What's his treasure? I don't know. There's a lot in this story.
Yeah, his treasure is the Montresor. I mean, Fortunato.
Amontillado.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Victory.
Jeannie, you were talking about how sane people can go crazy. Well, an example of that dichotomy is this story, because Poe was sane enough to write a marvelous story, and yet crazy enough to devote time to write a story about somebody he did not like.
That's a good point. That's awesome. Sorry.
Makes perfect sense to me.
You wonder if that's part of his motivation, that the fact that he's still talking about it 50 years later, like this was his crowning achievement. He's been living off of that victory for most of his life.
Mm-hmm.
And he thinks about it often.
Well, it could be his one great accomplishment, but also his one biggest regret.
Yeah, both.
Yeah.
So that's one of those things that keeps him wishy-washy, because it's like we were talking about the other day, having like Cheryl brought up about having the angel on one side and the devil on the other.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a perfect example of where he feels vindicated that he, you know, accomplished what he set out to, was to get rid of his biggest, well, not rival, but his biggest pain in his, what. But at the same time, on the other side, it's like the guilt is eating him inside. And for 50 years, he's having to remember and just fixate on it, and just can't, he's like, oh, I did this. But at the same time, he's probably still thinking, I don't even know if was this good or was this bad? Was this right or was this wrong? It's kind of like the decisions that sometimes we make, even 20 years down the road, goes back to Robert Frost, The Road Less Traveled.
I don't see the ambiguity, though. I mean, at least judging by the first paragraph, he's really laying out, a wrong that's not redressed, needs to be punished. That he's talking about how important it is that he got his revenge. So I don't get a sense from reading this that he's of two minds about it, or that he's like second guessing it. He seems to be entirely satisfied with himself, proud of his action.
Well, and I guess what gets me is all the times that he asks him if he wants to turn back, all the chances he gets him to turn back. To me, that's a little bit
part of the ruse.
I think that's the reverse psychology we're talking about. He hacks up a little bit. Oh, you're not feeling well. You're sick. You're important, and he's saying you need to be getting your health back. So let's go back. And no, stop it. With the Amontillado, let's keep going. Right? I mean, he's basically just drawing him further and further in, like he's pulling him on the vine.
Yeah, and I think this points out perfectly Poe's genius, because the reader is interpreting their own vision for this.
Absolutely.
It could be the one person who is putting themselves in Montresor's position and has done something like this, maybe not like completely, as Holly said, she has a vision of walling somebody up in her chimney, but hasn't accomplished it yet. So, she's got Montresor on her brain and is like, oh, lead me on, Poe. I'm not second guessing anything. I've got this person. I know exactly how many bricks I'm going to need, how much mortar I'm going to need. I know what it's going to take and everything like this. But then on the other hand, you could have someone who is feeling guilt, is having that two sides of the mind of, I really want to do this because I know it's going to give me peace, but at the same time, maybe I should keep giving him reasons to push me on. Where you're talking about how Fortunato, Montesora is just Montesora. Can't talk right now. Him, using the reverse psychology, like Jason said, to keep pushing him to that end game. But at the same time, in my mind, it's like he's trying to give him a way to back out, and that's building him up inside, saying, okay, I gave him a way out, but he's not taking it, so I'm vindicating myself every step. That he doesn't take the chance, I get vindicated that when I wall him up and kill him, I'm going to be okay, you know? So it's one of those things. It's like interpretation. We've talked about it over and over again. Poe and his reader interpretation.
Yes.
That's one of his perfect things that he does. So
I think overall, Montresor may have given Fortunato chances to get out. But then I think about the family crest when it said, no one goes unpunished, or I'm paraphrasing, no one insults me with impunity. It means you're going to get it. So I think all the psychology stuff, but he knew exactly what was going to happen when he got there. He's going to kill him no matter what.
Yeah.
I love what Fortunato says right after he says what the crest is. It's almost like he is proud of him. You know, like he's like, yeah, that's a strong crest. Good. No one, punishes with impunity, insults me with impunity. Great. Yeah. Fantastic. Almost like something about
there's also insults in there, but Montresor couldn't remember what the family crest was. And as was said earlier, that was a prideful thing back in those days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, Fortunato said, no, I don't remember what your family crest was.
Oh, yeah. He couldn't have cared less.
Insult right there. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody had time to read the 2 essays in this book. One of the kind of talking about just was he feeling guilt or not? Jan Burke, who wrote, let's see, Bones, Flights, Bloodlines, and Kidnapped. One of the things that I thought was interesting is that she calls Montresor a madman, not to be trusted, capable of mocking both his victims. Oh, that was weird. And his screams is as heartless as any. And I really think that's really shows at the very end when Montresor is leaving and Fortunato is crying. And like, if this was a modern TV show, it would be like a mic drop, from Montresor, because it's like, he did the deed. He knows what's going to happen, and nobody's going to go down into that catacombs probably for a very long time.
And you said that she identified him as a madman. I don't know if I'd do that. I don't know if I could agree with that. So
yeah, I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah.
I agree with the mocking part, but
sure.
But I think it was Holly, was it you that said that he's perfectly sane with the premeditation and everything?
Yeah, I think he's actually Poe's only sane killer, for me at least, that I could think of. I was like really trying to think about it. I mean, because like I said, I don't really feel like, I mean, he wasn't talking. He wasn't talking to things that weren't there. He wasn't under the influence of any sort of drugs or alcohol, because he wasn't drinking. Like, he never, or maybe he did take a sip, but he was definitely not drunk when he brought Fortunato down there.
Yeah, and Fortunato, the alcohol had worn off by the time they got down. Yeah, he wasn't as drunk as he was.
Yeah, as you thought, it was be assumed he was, or that Montresor assumed he was either.
Yeah, and so the question is, if Fortunato if this was real and he wasn't drinking that much, would he have gone down there for the Amontillado, or would he have convinced Montresor to actually bring it to him? You kind of wonder.
I think he was in the revelry of the time. The carnival was going on, and he just appealed to his higher sense of being. And so Montresor is tempting him with saying, well, you might think that you're the expert on all this stuff, but I Lucchese can do the same thing, and just all that by itself is just completely ridiculous to him, and he can't abide by any of that. And so then the fact that the Amontillado is in an underground catacombs to keep it cool, and obviously heavy enough where he's not going to be hauling it around with him.
Yeah.
It made it to where you have to come with me, and But I think at that initial meeting at the Carnival, when I think right at the end of their interaction, Fortunato just starts taking off and he starts heading over, toward the villa. And he's like, "Where are you going?" He's like, "Well, to your vaults, obviously. I mean, let's go." And so he almost like draws Montresor to start up the whole process.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I'm thinking that this story for me really shows Poe's genius in blending so superbly horror with humor.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite lines in this book is toward the end, in the last paragraph, where he says, "My heart grew sick." And then there's this big M dash on account of the dampness of the catacombs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when I read that, I went, "Oh, whoa." I've read this so many times and it surprises me, but it made me almost kind of laugh. And then I felt kind of sick for laughing about that. But
gallows humor, Cheryl.
I think, yeah, I know, gallows, catacomb humor, whatever. But I think that if you survey, a lot of people out there, 90% of the people would put Poe in the category of this macabre. In fact, he was called the master of the macabre, but he also was a humorist.
Yeah.
And to me, that humorous side of him does two things. It gives me hope for him because I always want to go back. I want to go back in time and meet the guy for coffee, and just sit down and be his best friend because he needed that, And then the other thing is it shows his humanity. It just shows his humanity, and maybe people wouldn't be so quick to put him in this category of. I mean, there was a lot of people that thought he was insane, and Griswold certainly capitalized on that after Poe died.
Yeah,
and perpetrated that idea of Poe, for 200 years, up to now. And so I wonder. I know as teachers, a lot of teachers in middle school, some teachers in middle school, I shouldn't say all, they like the cool, that macabre side of Poe is cool. And they can use that to get the kids involved in it.
Yes.
But there's that other side of him, that humorous side too, that I think sometimes gets short shrift when it comes to learning about Poe. And in the book the collection I have of Poe stories, the Cask of Amontillado is in the mystery and horror section, but the next section is humor. I think it could very well be in there too.
Yeah,
in many ways.
It definitely crosses over.
I think it does, and that's the genius of Poe for me.
The whole setting, you talk about the horror part. The whole setting, I think, is just masterfully done, being down in the catacombs. And there's one part near the end where Montresor sits down on the bones to listen to, I think it's the jangling of the chains or Fortunato's crying, but just this idea is just emphasizing that he's just surrounded by bones. He's just having a seat on a pile of bones while he's listening to this guy in his death throes. So to me, that's a great horror element. But the last thing I just say about Fortunato is nowadays when I read this story, all I hear for Fortunato's lines is Dr. Jeff doing his kind of raspy voice.
Yeah.
That is Fortunato to me at this point.
Yeah.
That's the voice.
Yeah.
Which is a very, I don't, Dr. Jeff, this is what your intent was, but it comes across as, somebody who's overplaying his hand, but, very assertive and proud and very pushy, but still ultimately weak. And I think you've just captured that in the voice.
Well, thanks.
I agree, definitely.
I listened to several of the readings on YouTube before I, started working on it. And then years ago, I, as well as Leela, heard Jonathan Frid perform the Cask of Amontillado many times at his one-man shows of dramatic readings. So he always did a great job, and so I wanted to do a good job as well.
I watched it, and it was great. I
Thanks.
watched that the whole show today.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, is the Jonathan Frid version available at all?
I'm not sure. His Telltale Heart is on one of the Dark Shadows DVDs, but I'm not sure about the Cask of Amontillado.
Okay. I'm gonna write this down and look for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because
there are some DVDs of Jonathan Frid's one-man shows, Genesis of Evil, and a few Fools and Fiends. I think that's the one where he did it. Jonathan Frid's Fools and Fiends.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Dr. Jeff, I actually listened to your actual reading today before the show. Yeah, so yeah.
Yeah.
It's very good.
You do all the voices, and it's like, I mean, seriously, it was only 15 minutes. I was like, gosh, it was like, because sometimes like I have had zero time lately, so I was like, crap, and I was like, I want to listen to Dr. Jeff. So yeah, it was good job.
Well, I slipped up a couple of times and then changed a few words just to make it more understandable for someone hearing it and not being able to see it on the page. Yeah. But speaking of Jonathan Frid, he changed an important word in the Telltale Heart, because today almost no one would know what death watches in the wall would mean. Yeah. And so he added a word. He said the Death Watch beetles in the wall.
That makes
sense. So I did that too when I read it.
You know what's funny is I didn't even realize that the Beatles wasn't actually part of it, because I guess I just plugged it in there myself. Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, and let's see. Micah had said Fortunato pulling out his phone, opening the app. Sounds great. Let's get DoorDash to bring it up. Or curses.
Yeah, plan foiled.
Yes, and Steve says a pipe of Amontillado is 126 gallons. Wow, I did not realize it was that much.
That would be huge. That would be a vat.
Yeah.
That's a big cask.
That's huge.
Thanks for that, Steve.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts before we talk about what's coming up?
I would add one thing. When we watch movies or read stories nowadays, we identify, depending on your own personal leanings, with the protagonist, maybe the antagonist. You've got a good guy, a bad guy. Maybe you lean one direction or the other. Maybe we'll root for the bad guy and we'll root for the good guy, whatever. I think we can see ourselves in both Montresor and Fortunato. I think we've all probably wronged somebody. We've probably been wronged at one point. And I think, the way the story is written, that you could probably oh yeah, okay. I can kind of see a little piece of some aspect in our own lives where you can identify on both sides of the fence in there, and so you understand both characters to almost an equitable degree as they go, through this whole process, and you're like, oh yeah, I remember, 10 years ago or so, I guess I could probably get walled up behind there, so I think you probably all got something, that we can identify with these characters both ways. It's not just like a clear good guy, bad guy type situation,
Right. So instead of, are you a Ginger or a Marianne? Are you a Fortunato or a Montessori?
Yeah, right. There you go.
I'm a Gilligan.
All right, little buddy.
Well, some people have put forth the theory that the 7 characters of Gilligan's Island represent the 7 deadly sins.
I think I heard that.
Someone wrote an article about that.
Yeah.
Oh goodness.
We talked about coming full circle. That's
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that would make this episode 3 hours long, though. We can't do that.
Yeah. Because our boat sank a long time ago. The Poe Unplugged boat sank a long time ago. It didn't take a 3-hour tour. It took the Protastic too. That's what happened. So, but if you think about it, Gilligan's Island is the perfect of modern day Cask of Amontillado, because poor Gilligan gets walled up into everything.
Mm-hmm.
He ends up everywhere, and Professor and or Skipper, he's always being wronged, or Professor Howell, or Professor Howell.
Mr. Howell.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm like, hey, let me just put them both together. Who knows?
Yeah.
But anyway.
Oh my goodness. Yeah,
So,
this has
moving
been
on.
an awesome discussion. And then, Cheryl said, Jonathan Fred reads The Cask of Amontillado. Oh, yay, it's on YouTube. Thank
Right
you
there.
for that.
Mhm.
I will check that out. Yes, it's been a great discussion tonight, and just kind of like just talking about what we're doing for the next couple months. So August 26th is The Man Who Collected Poe by Robert Bloch, and watch Torture Garden because that story is featured in there, so that we'd have a lot to talk about, and just Robert Bloch in general. And September 30th is The Oblong Box, which we were really surprised we had not read yet. So, anybody have thoughts for October?
How about the premature burial?
We
We did that one.
read it, but I think
Before I came on. Oh, okay.
who
But
Before I joined you.
But I agree that I would love for you all to just rerun all of the early stories you did, because most of us were not in the group back then, and so we haven't had a chance to talk about it yet.
I'm all for. I think who would have been it with me and Jeanie, obviously.
I was there.
Holly was there. Micah, were you there?
Micah's always there. Micah was there.
For what, the premature burial?
I knew Micah was there.
Hey, I don't remember about the premature burial, but I agree with you guys. Let's do it again if that works for you.
Yeah, I think that is a perfect one for October.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a good one.
Is that October 28th?
Yes, it is, right before Halloween. Yes. And then, and Micah added, Professor Fortunato can make a phone out of coconuts, but can't escape from the catacombs. This sitcom is not believable. That's great.
Exactly.
So when was The Man Who Collected Poe again? Is that the 26th?
That's going to be August 26th. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Recently, I was on a podcast about Psycho by Robert Bloch and Dark Shadows, and I talked about how I knew Robert Bloch for the last 4 years of his life. We wrote letters to each other, and he was a very nice man. Nobody in the business or fandom ever had anything bad to say about him. He could write grisly stories of dismemberment and murder and gore and everything, but he was a very gentle, fine man in real life. And his autobiography, Once Around the Block, BLOCH, is quite good. It's very witty and clever, and gives a lot of background about his life, and Psycho, of course.
That reminds me a lot of like Vincent Price, who's also seen as just a consummate gentleman, or Boris Karloff.
Well, and I think it just proves the kind of feeling of people who write horror are balanced with that other half of humor. It's almost like two masks. You've got the horror mask, you've got the humor mask. It's the two H's that blend together, because if you're going to write that something like, especially like the Cask of Amontillado, where you are walling somebody up, or especially Telltale Heart, where you're dismembering someone, you got to have a humor side to pull you off the ledge, or the first step of the going down to the catacombs. All right, I'm writing the autobiography title down.
Okay. Once Around the Block.
Yes, that's a great title.
That is great.
So we've got the next 3 months planned out, and so that's awesome. We like to have that ahead of time, dates and all of that. So, all right, anybody have anything else before we leave for this evening?
Thank you.
Yes,
Mhm.
thank you guys.
Thank
I
you.
love the dressing up. Love the dressing up.
Mhm.
And Steve and Micah, if you'll stay for just a second, Jeannie and I wanted to
Like
ask
that shirt.
something
I'll do it too.
quick.
There we go.
Delicious.
Yes. Yeah, please do. And yeah, look forward to next month with The Man Who Collected Poe. And just guys have a wonderful month. And school starts back for me this Friday. And so I'm excited to get a new group of kids. And yeah, it's
School
just,
starts on a Friday?
well, I go back Friday, but kids
Oh,
start till
preparing
next
your
week.
class.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So
In-service day, whatever you call it.
yes, oh yes. And so
I'm going to teach two English 1010 classes at Nashville State Community College
oh, awesome.
beginning in late August.
Oh,
So
great.
I, of course, will do Annabelle Lee with them and the Earl King and a lot of other good poems.
That will be great.
Awesome.
And I think Jason said, I'm personally thinking Cass moved into Holly's top 5 after the discussion.
I actually do have to say that when I listened to Dr. Jeff again today, like it has slowly kind of, this is how I felt about Pit and the Pendulum too. The more I read it, the more I like it. So I mean it's moving, it's moving up. Top 5, I don't know, I have to sit down there, but it has moved up from its original at the bottom of the cask. No.
Yes. One of these Poe Unplugs, we should tell our rank the top 5 and share
Oh,
them.
that'd be cool. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, if y'all want to, we could do that next month.
Poetry and prose, 2
Yes.
lists.
Yes.
Oh, 2 lists. Okay, yeah, first, yeah, that'd be a little bit easier that way then.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I guess if everybody's ready, if we all together want to say we are
Oh,
out.
Bye.